Nate Fisher coming to you here from Columbus, Ohio. Family man, multifamily developer, owner, operator, mixing my passion for the mountains and skiing with my passion for real estate. Catch me on the Jesse T Show.
Nate Fisher, welcome to the Jesse T Show, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Looking
My
forward to
pleasure,
it.
man. Yeah, same. A good friend of ours plugged us in, Todd Armstrong, and I can't say enough great things about that guy, from personal to business and everywhere in between. He's a good dude with a good heart, and he can make things happen. And so this is how we got together. So wanted to plug into you, hear a little bit more about you, your story. So if you could just give us a little color and context as to who you are and what brought you to today.
Yeah, so I'm a multifamily real estate developer, owner, operator. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Huge passion for the mountains, huge passion for real estate. I grew up, I grew up in a multifamily family. Okay. And what that means is that what my parents were doing and what guys are trying to do today, my parents were doing that in the 70s. So, they're doing the Burr method. My parents were buying doubles and renovating them, fixing them up. So, I grew up around apartments and the apartment industry my whole entire life. And really, I always knew that I wanted to get involved in real estate. I just didn't really know where I fit. And so really from a really, really early age, I was rolling around in a beat up work truck with my dad, doing work orders on the apartments, and graduated to, mowing the lawns and working on the roofing crew. And so that was really, that was my childhood. Childhood was spent driving around working on apartments, and sort of worked my way up through a family business where my family business was owning and operating apartments in central Ohio, about 1,000 units, a scattered site C-class property. So that was kind of my childhood.
Can you walk us through? There's a lot that we're going to unpack, but for those that aren't familiar, we have some folks that have been on before for different forms of real estate and different things that they were doing. But for what you're talking about, it's interesting. Can you just jumped out to me? You said C class. Can you walk through the different types of classes and what that means so people can understand a little bit better?
Yeah, I think starting at the top, you see a lot of A-class properties being built right now. So that's highly amenitized, brand new, just constructed. Then you get down to B-class, which might be 2000, 15, 20 years old. Then you get down into C class, which is more in the actually now it's gosh down into maybe the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, and anything older than that that's starting to get functionally obsolete. And maybe you get into D class, right, which is just destroyed, really tough stuff. So the portfolio I grew up around was true C class scattered sites. So that was anywhere from a single family house to a 200-unit complex, typically older, maybe a little bit rougher clientele, not the highest rents. So it was a battle, man. It was the tenants there can be a challenge, but I got really good at that, managing tough people, and it you got to have thick skin. But it's really that C class property is urban, tough, not a lot of rent. You're working really hard. You're fixing a lot of stuff.
Now, I know you've had a lot of experience there and a lot of firsthand moments where you've seen a lot of things and you've done a lot of things, and it's probably led you to be a great operator because you know the ins and the outs of the business. But I'm going to kind of play Tarantino here a little bit. We're going to jump to just present day for a moment in terms of what kind of class properties are you now?
So day to day, I manage 400 units in Dayton, Ohio, just across from downtown, and I'll call those C plus properties.
Okay.
They're 1960s, mid 60s high rise buildings. Um, some nice amenities. They were a beautiful address back when they were built, and now just a little bit lower because there's beautiful brand new stuff being built right across the river from us. So not a super tough portfolio, but still kind of the top end of the C. And I do a lot of investing with other people. So we do. I'm a GP, a general partner in a number of Class A assets. And so as we've kind of done this grind and gone up, and we've took an opportunity to sell a lot of stuff in 21 and 20, and are trading up in asset class. I also do new development. I've got an 85 unit building being built here just on the east side of downtown Columbus, and then 130 unit active adult community in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I really am kind of going across the gamut in multifamily from development to C plus class property management.
And I think it's important because we had a little bit of a primer conversation a while back about your trajectory in that career and in your life and where you started, how you had some bumps in the road in terms of just life experiences, also some thoughts about how maybe you wanted to do things differently than maybe you were shown. And so can we walk that path a little bit of, younger Nate, new in the business, things that you're seeing, maybe relationship stuff with your dad in terms of that business, what you liked, what you didn't, what you learned, and maybe kind of when you went out and started to hang your own shingle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Talk about that journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me go back a little bit and just kind of set it up. I always knew I wanted to be in real estate and just didn't know where I would fit in the family business. I have an older brother who's 7 years older than me. And he worked for the family business his whole life. I have a younger sister, and they're both my partners today, which is awesome. And then my mom and dad, they're so we've all worked for them at various times. 2003, after I went to Ohio State, got a real estate degree from the College of Business there, and I went to work for a ski resort development company that was based out of Canada. So you might have heard of Whistler Blackcomb. They do base village development. So I did that for a while, which was awesome. Got some corporate level experience, and came back. Ended up starting Peak 10 in 2003, and then I had my own little company for a while, and Great Recession hit, and I said, okay, it's probably time to go back to work for the family, or to go to work for the family. And so I really didn't have a choice, but it was time. There wasn't a lot of work, and so made a conscious decision to come back and join my brother and mother and father. And I saw my parents built this incredibly great engine, right, of a business, but it was different. And they sort of built it their way, and I had some thoughts about how to do it different. I at that time, what you see today, all these buildings being built, I could see the demographic wave of renters coming. And so when I entered the family business in 2008, I brought a lot of technology, and I have a CPM, a certified property manager designation, which is like the MBA of property management. So, I brought a lot of technology into the family business. But it was a grind. I remember in 2009, I was making $12 an hour working in the family business for my parents and delivering pizzas at night. And my wife and are getting ready. We're contemplating, we're pregnant with our second child. And I'm like, man, can we afford this? Can we afford to do this? And, thankfully I went to my parents and they said, yeah, we're going to help you out. But it was tough, dude. It was a tough time. Tough
What did
time.
that help look like? So you were making 12 bucks an hour, slinging some pizzas on the side. Did they increase your salary? Did you give you more opportunity to what did they do to help you in that moment?
They had really, what they did is they helped me wipe out some big credit card debt
Oh, great.
that, cause I had, we had gotten married, had our first kid, and now having our second. So, both of us went to our parents and said, hey, we want to have more kids. And they're like, we're not going to let you starve. So just hearing that from the folks say, we're not going to let you starve, go ahead and have more kids. That's what we needed to hear at that time. And that helped alleviate some of the stress at that time.
And as you're stepping into this new paradigm of getting back into the family business, so to speak, and being in this newfound economy after the Great Recession in '08, and you're kind of stepping into, I got into banking and I want to say 2011, and I still felt the effects of the recession as a banker then, in terms of underwriting guidelines, really strict rates, all sorts of different things. And you got into it pretty much right after the Great Recession, and like in the beginning of this new market. What was it like for you? How did you scale up your business aptitude, your experience, and when did you start really kind of getting that need to kind of go do your own thing?
Yeah. So, I ran the family business through 2018. And so what I figured out, the cost structure that my folks had built was great when a sole proprietor owns the entire business. But the cost structure, he would go out and buy a truck, and that would sort of, okay, well, that doesn't, if you start to take on other partners, or you want to grow through using other people's money, or maybe you're doing some estate planning and some of the kids start to get ownership, that cost structure doesn't always work. So I sort of figured out that I was looking for a Ferrari to drive, the engine. And I wasn't really going to be able to turn the family business in the direction that I wanted it to go. It couldn't be as efficient because I knew if I wanted to scale up, I needed to utilize some outside money. And so what we did in 2013 is we got asked by a family friend to invest in a deal in Texas, in Austin, Texas, 2013.
Love
So that
Austin,
was
by the
sort
way.
yeah,
It's just one of my favorite places to visit.
yeah, it's rocking. I love
Yeah.
it. It's awesome. And we've had a great time down in the Texas investments. And so that was our first sort of investment outside with a partner. And that led to sort of the family business and then this outside partnering. And from 2013 through now, we probably did the value add flip on 4,000 units,
Wow.
4,500 units. And
Wow.
so, it's been a wild ride. And that really sort of propelled us and scaled us up. Now the family business is still there doing pretty much about the same thing it's doing today. My sister's over there running and she's doing a great job. But in 2016, I went out and bought the properties in Dayton and we used a more, I guess, traditional normal cost structure with some outside investors and a cost structure that investors could handle. Those those 400 units in Dayton make more net operating income or about as much as the whole family business with 900 units.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I run a really highly efficient property management company. And so those are the things I brought into my business that I wanted to grow and yeah, but
Did you start
again, rough grind.
did you start feeling the pains of, a lot of times, when you're kind of a leader or almost a maverick in a way, and you're kind of pushing new norms and you're in an established even family business, right? There's the status quo. This is how we do things. This is how we've always done things. This is what works for us. Sometimes people are afraid of change. Sometimes people have all these different feelings where you're getting some pushback and some issue with you wanting to run your Ferrari in the engine that was already pre-built that wasn't quite what you wanted to run. What was that like?
Well, like I said, the grind on the way up and the grind on the way up was really tough. It was a lot of stress, and I remember a very pivotal moment was me and my partner in Texas were sitting there in the car, and we're like, okay, we got to figure out how to buy 200 unit complexes. We're both smart people, don't know how to do it, but we're going to figure this shit out, right? We're going to figure it out. And so we ultimately end up figuring it out and learned a lot.
What did that
Now the
look
challenge.
like? Can you dive into that? Because that's it may seem like old hat to you because you've been there, done that. But like for someone who may have this grandiose idea, someone who loves real estate, someone who's sharp, someone who has connections, maybe they don't have a ton of funding, but maybe they have relationships to people that can get them funding. Who knows what their scenario is? But how does someone? What did you do? Like how did you put that together?
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to is you don't know what you don't know. And what I had learned from my family and the way that they did business was awesome. And it built a really solid engine, but it was all based upon not high leverage. Now it's crazy time to be talking about leverage given what's going on in the economy right now. But the debt structure that my folks would put on would be like a 15-year fixed loan, fully amortizing. There just wasn't the cash flow. And so once we understood how the debt would work and how to use, I guess, modern debt, if you
Yeah.
will, and leverage, and we're like, wow, I was trying to apply the way my father was and mother were buying properties to a 200 unit complex, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so once I figured out the model of, okay, I've got to leverage it to this way and I've got to run it at this amount of expenses, and really learning what the lenders are looking for, it was just understanding that there's a different way to do business than maybe what I was taught.
Mm.
And ultimately, yes, that did sort of scare the family, and this is the way we've always done it. And the deal sizes were getting huge. It ultimately led to my firing in 2018.
Okay.
Uh,
Talk
uh,
about
which,
that. How did that come out? Hey, get the hell out of here. Or like, how did that happen? And how did you respond?
well, first of all, it was super traumatic. Okay. I lost health insurance for my whole family. Now we had 3 kids, right? And I lost my income. And, it was sort
Which
of
was
a,
what at the time? What was your income?
I was fighting to get paid $75,000 a year, running 1,000 unit portfolio,
And this is only a few
nine
years
hundred
ago.
unit.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, this is 2018, and you have a wife, 3 kids.
Yeah,
that money doesn't stretch as far as it used to 20, 30 years ago. So
correct.
you're probably grinding.
Yeah. Yeah, the grind was super hard and, pushing through and trying to figure out how to do these deals, and there was a lot of headbutting. I won't lie. I mean, I ended up with, like we talked before, I ended up with a big drinking problem. I had a bad alcohol problem, and I was numbing all the day-to-day and the money stress and the child stress and the deal stress and the whatever stress. I was just tamping it down with a bottle of liquor every night, right?
How much? How
And
much were you drinking every night?
I was drinking about a fifth of vodka every
And would
day.
you start like getting up, morning drink, like wait till the nighttime? Like, how did that look for you?
No, I was not a shower drinker, not a morning drinker. I was a happy hour, start at happy hour and go to bed. Not
Yep.
a daytime drinker and not a weekend daytime, it wasn't 24 hours a day for me. But it was when I got off work, I was tamping it all down and
Mm,
numbing to perfection, man.
damn, dude. So how did you see that unfold in your life? Like, how was that? Because from my experience, we talked about this, and the viewers and listeners, people that know me know this. That had a drug addiction for a couple of years that was pretty intense, and ended up, using heroin. And I was able to leave that life behind, heal. Last time I had done heroin was 2006. So thankfully, I found a lot of beautiful things in my life. What was that like for you when you first started kind of numbing the stress, the fear of what if, the pressure you may be receiving from family? Did you initially find solace in it, or did it immediately become the roadblock that it inevitably becomes? Like, you can't for a long amount of time be healthy, have great relationships, be successful, and do all these things with that kind of, habit. So what was that like for you initially, and how long did that habit play out?
It really probably started getting where I was like, I gotta, it's in my family. I've got a brother who just celebrated 28 years of sobriety.
Good for him.
Yeah, and another business partner in my pest control business. He's got actually his my brother and my business partner in the pest control company, same sobriety date, 28 years. It's crazy.
Beautiful. Did they meet each
Yeah.
other like in AA or something, or
No, no,
no?
just met through the business, but it turns out they have the same sobriety date.
Wow.
So that's crazy, isn't it?
Ha
But
have Has anyone used, like, your brother, the pest control owner, or yourself? Do you use any, and we can come back to this, do you use any tools like AA or anything just to stay sober?
yeah, I do yeah, my brother is still goes to meetings regularly. My partner in the pest control company, he's flying around speaking at AA conventions, and I have a Tuesday night Zoom with a couple of fellow guys that I go to every week,
Beautiful.
and then I have an executive assistant. I didn't know when I hired her, but she's in the sober community as well, and so we talk about it on a pretty regular basis, and it's a great, it's a thing. I don't, that's it's a thing that helps me guide my life, and it changed a lot of things. And the hockey stick went up on the net worth when I got sober and got my side of the street clean. So been
I
4 years, April 21st, 4 years for me.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks, bro. Thank you.
So that means, you picked up the bottle in 2018.
No, 2011 is when I really,
2011. I'm sorry. I was gonna say, because then the math
yeah,
would only be like a year or two, but so you 2011, and then you put it down about 4 years.
2019.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful place to be. Two things about that. The first thing is, I can Google his name real quick, but I think it's William, maybe his first name. But one of the founders of AA, and you may know this story. There was a guy, and I'll get his name for you. One of the ways he came up with AA. Have you heard about this? You know what I'm about to say?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
He did LSD. He did LSD one time, and it gave him the insights and knowledge to not only heal his alcoholism, but then set up the 12 steps.
Crazy.
Wild. And you know my story a little bit. Like, I've used psychedelics
Hmm.
in my own way, not LSD, but other ones like ayahuasca, San Pedro, a bunch of different ones, in very intentional, sacred ways to heal my own stuff. And it's interesting that this super stay clean, sober, beautiful system that's helped so many people was born in part Buy a
Yeah,
psychedelic. I'll
that's
send you
awesome.
his name. I forget his first. I think it's William something, but it's just eluding me. The second thing I can think of is I don't know if you're familiar with Lee Steinberg. Do you know that name?
Mhm. Yeah,
He's the
yeah,
real
the
life
agent.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah. So he
Yeah.
was the guy that Jerry Maguire was modeled off of. And I'm connected with him somewhere along the lines, maybe through the podcast or through LinkedIn. But he's always posting. He's always posting every year on his anniversary. He's like 20 something years on the sunny side of the street. Whatever his years are. It's good to see a lot of people that have gone through something so hard, covering up some sort of pain or trauma or whatever is going on in their life that can work themselves out of it. I think that's a huge thing because a lot of people do face those things. So I appreciate you. Number one, thank you for being alive. Number two, sharing your story because there's a lot of people that listen to this that may have had dips, valleys, low points where they may need to self-medicate, and or at least they think that. And you're a testament as to why you probably don't need to do that. That's good.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, brother. So now as far as you telling me, before we got on this your episode, you've kind of set out on your own path and you've kind of done your own
Mhm.
thing. And so what has brought you fulfillment business wise, relationships wise, anything personally, like as you're running this business? Because I've been an operator, business operator on and off pretty much my whole life. And there's times where it can get lonely. There's times where even if you're around a bunch of people, you feel like you're by yourself. There's those dark points, and you don't want to go back to those old habits that weren't serving: alcohol, drugs, whatever, any kind of escapism. What are some of the things that are keeping you motivated to be on that path, to be on the right path these days?
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time thinking about the family and when I'm in this multifamily family, right? Like there's 3 generations. So mom, dad, my brother, my sister, and now there's 7 grandkids, right?
Wow.
And so they're coming up and they're don't tell them they're in a couple deals, the kids are, okay? So if you're listening, kids, anyway.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, this is like 4D chess, right? That I'm playing, and I get off on thinking, okay, looking at a real estate opportunity, let's layer some estate planning on it. Let's layer the tax strategy on it. How can we make this a win-win? Like, okay, I'm looking at a development deal and it's an opportunity zone, right? Like, I love these complex family related real estate questions, right? Okay, it's an opportunity zone. All right, well, we can sell a property that mom and dad have that's fully depreciated. They can fund the equity of the opportunity zone. I could put my kids in as partners. We all win. Like we're playing the game at a high level. Like that's the stuff I love to talk about and think about and help other people out with, right? Like there's so many this business has got so many crazy aspects of it, and I love that kind of high level thinking about deals, right?
Yeah,
So
no, and also it's inclusive, and you're bringing along the people that you love the most, right? You get to do life and
yeah,
do business and share in the fruits and the ups and downs, and you have people that you can lean on, that you trust, that that have your back, and family's family, right? And it's good to be able to. Excuse me, one second, I might sneeze. Okay, we'll cut that out. Eve, if you could go cut that out, please. I'm dealing with some severe allergies, so I'm going to pause for just a moment to get rid of this, and then we'll jump back in. I'm going to look at the timer too, so about 27 or so minutes in. I apologize. It's acting up for me. So I'll count back in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So being able to bring your family along with you and reap the rewards, go through the struggles together, that's got to be rewarding in itself too.
it is. I mean, if I'm looking at an opportunity and usually my kids are in it, I'm in it, I'm putting my wife in it, whether it's investors. I mean, that's the level that I'm trying to put in. I want us all to win. And so, I try to look at every deal that way. Like if whether it's an investor that has some money with me or it's my family, I've got to treat this deal with a lot of care and a lot of thought.
I know
Um,
you're in a very specific segment, and you've been in the industry for a long time, so there's some power there. But when you think about, I'll even use my own experience. So my was wife, who is still a very close friend and great co-parent to my kids, we're no longer married. She and I understood the value of real estate, even though we had great careers. we took real estate into our personal investment portfolio. And the way that we did that was like fix and flips. If we could get in at a low price, go in there, maybe update it a little bit, turn it around, make quick 30, 40, 50,000. It was great. But that was what the market dictated at that time. And so nowadays, and you probably see this a lot. I'm really deep into global economics and different things. And I'm still a fiduciary now, but I carry a Series 65, so I know a little bit about the market and
Mhm.
investments and these different things. Um, we're seeing a lot of Wall Street buying up personal residence. We're seeing residences. We're seeing a lot of limited availability to a degree on the personal side, and the rates are climbing. So what people were paying for a mortgage a couple of years ago, they're paying double now. So there's a lot of the barrier to entry is not as easy, and this is a few different reasons. There's the market always corrects. Real estate, the value of corporations always goes up over time, but there's usually a dip for anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years called a recession potentially. We've been overdue for one for a really long time, but we're starting to feel it now. So can you give some feedback as to what you're seeing in the marketplace? And even though you're on the commercial, the syndication side, that side, the business side, what are you feeling and seeing in the markets as of today in terms of the trajectory of where we're going to be in the next year, 2 years? What people should kind of consider getting into real estate, of residential, of commercial, in the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I've been in this business now for a long, long time, and this is the weirdest I've ever felt it. Um, I mean, I know that, '08 and all that stuff was crazy, but fortunately at that time, our leverage in the family portfolio, I have a big dashboard, was not too high. And so, I think that, and we were able to weather that really well. And so, what I'm seeing right now, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent here, follow me,
Go for it.
is I'm probably looking at 3 to 4 deals a week. Nothing is making sense right now.
Mm.
The delta between seller expectations who haven't sold their property, who still think it's worth it, what it was in 21, and what the capital markets I can finance it at, is still 20 to 25%. Like, I mean, it's crazy. And so right now it's like batting practice. Just keep getting up and swinging.
I just keep
Okay.
swinging. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe you'll connect, right? Maybe one will hit. But it's right now, it's about being cautious and making sure you're doing the right deal. And if you've got a number that it works for you today with current finance rates,
Mm.
is that good enough? Okay, you can probably buy it, but is the seller willing to take the haircut
Mm.
that they're need to take for your numbers to make sense? And so, you know, I I mean, I have a great property right now. I bought it in 21. It's cash flowing really, really well. We've had great rent growth, but I did a 3-year loan on it. It comes due next year. By no fault of our own, there's a scenario that if I switch banks from the current lender, I got to bring money to closing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can have incredibly great operations, and there's a disconnect between the new tax values that are going to come out. Okay, so we're going to get clobbered on taxes. You've got inflation in your expenses.
Mm.
Your rent growth is still going, but your interest rate just doubled, and you got to bring money to closing.
It's
What the
wild.
heck?
It's
It's
wild.
weird,
Yeah.
weird.
All right. So
So
go ahead. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
I was going to say, so somewhere in there, if you're selling a property, someone's going to have to take a haircut, right? And so, if I was to sell that property, I would have lost all my equity that I brought to
Mm.
the table in 21. It's just a weird, weird time. So, you might be operating, and in a challenging time, it's all about operating really well, and it still might not be enough. So,
To that end, maybe some expert advice on what people should be considering in these times of real estate, of personal residences for whatever reason, or commercial. Like what should people be looking for to try to make a go at this if they feel called to make this their business?
again, like, I think that there's a couple things here. On the buy side, again, if your numbers make sense at today's interest rates, and you can acquire it and look at it as a long-term hold, right? real estate's like a bad haircut, right? Eventually it grows out and it looks okay, right?
Yeah.
Like even if you make a bad buy, usually maybe you cut the hair too short or something, but usually if you can hold it, it's going to work out in your favor. And it might just be a little bit of a longer hold.
Yep.
So don't be afraid, keep looking. Don't be afraid to buy if the numbers make sense today. Also, insurance is a crazy thing. I've never seen insurance kill deals.
Mm.
So I just saw on Twitter yesterday, $180,000 for insurance last year. New quote, 900,000. So insurance is also killing deals today. So we never had to worry about that before.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, you've got to talk to your insurance guy before you're looking at the deal. You got to think about your taxes and you got to think about inflation on your expenses. So, I mean, wow. Like think about
Leverage,
that.
leverage, cash flow, some deep pockets, like it's going to matter for the next few years. And I don't know how deep you get into some of these things that are happening in the world, but have you, and this is kind of going off a little bit more on the put your tinfoil hats on, people, but have you heard anything about World Economic Forum or Davos and kind of what their goal is, and how things are playing out in the world right now? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I mean, if I think where you're going is the US dollar and that we're not going to be the world currency, I still my thinking is that it's still US commercial real estate is still the best, like that could happen, but still we're sitting on incredibly great commercial real estate that a lot of people want to still want to have their money in.
100%. Yeah, and
You know,
real estate's tangible. Real estate's something that you
yeah.
can, like you said, buy and hold. You can make money while you're buying and holding it. You don't have to wait for some sort of transaction to realize a gain. Like there's a lot of things you can do with real estate, but where I was actually going with it was there's something that they're working on. I believe it was in 2019 or 2020 they came out saying that they're by 2030 we will own nothing and we will be happy about it, and it's called the Great Reset.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
Great Reset plays into a number of different factors. One of them is Wall Street. I mentioned earlier, buying up a lot of properties right now, and they've always done different things like this. And there's a lot of like food control, food supply control. There's a lot of things that are happening now that are playing out that are kind of scary. So I start to think about how can we, as business operators and humans, remain sovereign? How can we control our own destiny? How can we make sure that those things, while they do affect us, they don't become the thing that derails us or kills us in the sense of like stops us completely. So I've been a fan of real estate, even as at a time of financial planner, when most financial planners are pushing stocks, bonds, they're pushing options, they're pushing different things. Real estate's made the most millionaires in the world, at least up until this point, out of any other opportunity there ever has been.
Hands down.
No
100%.
question. And I used to say that as a financial planner, and some people in financial planning were like, easy. And I'm like, no, this is the truth. Like, I'm not going to sit here. Like, and that's why I became a fiduciary and yada, yada, yada. So long story short, people need to take advantage of the things they can now, but they also have to be prepared for the future. And I think what you're alluding on is there's been so much uncertainty and so much change. And like you just said in that one illustration, $180,000 a year for taxes to almost 5x that to $900,000. I mean, we're in a time right now where would you even recommend and again, every situation is different. I'm not looking for a hard and fast, like we're not going to hold your feet to the fire, but would you recommend that people, maybe if they're brand new to this side of the business or industry, maybe they give it some time, or you think there's still opportunity for them to jump in today?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think there's always, again, like, does the deal, think about your deal box, what makes sense for you. And
Yeah.
if it fits in there, just don't stick with what you know. Don't get greedy. Don't stretch too far. Like, once again, multifamily has proven to me that multifamily is where I need to be, right?
Yeah.
Anytime I veer out, so I'm sticking in my lane. And so I think, again, if the deal works for you, then it's still okay to buy right now. But I mean, and a couple things I'll add in, like I've shifted my game a little bit to really, that's why I've always been really good at operations. Like in my portfolio in Dayton, we have 33% to 35% annual turnover. That's 10 percentage points less than the industry average. So if you can focus on things that you control to like help you get more income. Another thing is just trying to make some revenue from, there's some great opportunities with the whole Green New Deal. Like I had somebody approach me and said, hey, put these EV charging stations in. The utility is going to give you a 75% rebate. And there's a
Wow.
25% tax credit. Well, nothing beats free. So I put in
Right.
17, is anybody using those EV charging stations? Like 2 people out of 400. But, that's going to be something that's going to help me down the road. So those are the kinds of opportunities that you've got to look for in this time when things are really weird. What
It,
else can you do?
it's going to bring in a certain type of clientele too, because the types of people that drive EVs are, conscious, usually awakened type human beings where they care about the world. They care. So you're going to bring in that type of person to live in that building. You're also going to bring in potentially people that have income that's higher, because a lot of EVs, if you look at Tesla and all these, they're not cheap cars. So you're kind of strategizing in a way by forecasting into the future. You're strategizing like conscious people that potentially have higher incomes. You're starting to build out like a different quality of
Yeah.
resident in these places. And I'm sure that was probably, and you can tell me, but that was probably by design.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see a lot of EV charging stations being put into C-class properties unless the government's forcing you to do it, right?
Yeah.
Which they're going to get there.
Yep.
They're going to get there. So why not do it ahead? And I own this charging stations. There, I'm not, leasing them from another company. So I own that revenue stream. And when I build a revenue stream from those types of tenants that I will attract, that's gonna make the properties more valuable down the road. The
100%.
next person that comes and buys, like, oh wow, I can amp up the net operating income off the property through, pushing the EV charging stations a little bit more.
Talking about multifamily, the old school mentality when I was growing up, I'm 41, but when I was growing up, it was like, try to buy a home. I was in Boston, try to what we call a 2 or 3 decker, right? But 2 or 3 floors, buy a 2 decker, a 3 decker. Like that was the old like get ahead system. Like once you have your own house, if you could buy this other house, or even maybe if you have your own house and you rent out the other 2 floors, there was some additional income coming in. What are people looking at today? Obviously credit scores, cash flow, there's these different things that you kind of have to have, but are there any nuanced or any like special things that people can get in that don't have a lot of money that want to get into like multifamily? And I'm not even talking syndication. I'm just talking straight up. They want to have multiple units, whether they rent them out or they do Airbnb, VRBO, something to that idea where they can have extra income where that helps them pay off debt, helps them buy more properties, helps them put their kids through college. Like, what are some strategies that you know of that you might be able to share, one or two, that like the person that's kind of maybe not quite heavy on cash needs a little subsidization or subsidizing? How would they get into this market?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original idea is, the house hack or the Burr method, right? Buy a place, live in it. And you can do this when you're young and you don't have kids and a big family, right? You can live in maybe a fringe neighborhood or an up and coming neighborhood, owner occupied. It's going to give you a little bit better interest rate. The bank's going to like that. So that's a
Yes.
real simple thing. And then just leveraging your network, and maybe you can find one and maybe get some owner financing. It's tough to find owner financing, but there's always that avenue. And I think, you've got to ask yourself, not everybody wants to be a landlord, right? So
No, it's hard.
I mean, it's not easy. And so I think for the people on the way up, or whether I'm talking to 20-year-old Nate or 18-year-old Nate,
Yeah.
hey, first question is, do you want to be a landlord? Right? Because if you do want to be a landlord, you know, go to, proceed to go, right? If you don't, then there's other ways of being a passive investor that
Yes.
don't require signing on a loan. And so let's not discount the people that want to get started in this business from, and what's so great lately is like the community of real estate people all the YouTube and all the people talking about it wasn't there 15 years ago or 10 years
Mhm.
ago.
Yep.
And so it's just such a great group of people to learn from. And again, you don't have to be a landlord. You can be a passive limited partner investor.
LP.
You
Yep.
can go into a crowdfunding situation, or you can be active. And I think if you say, I want to be active, okay, well then go do, live in a side, buy a 4-family. There's a lot of different angles to go if you decide you want to be the landlord.
Let me ask you this. You've mentioned this a couple times now, and it sounds like an acronym. Burr. What is the Burr method, or is that a name? Like, what is the Burr method?
Buy, renovate, rehab, refi, repeat. So
Okay.
yeah. So you
Buy,
buy it,
renovate, rehab,
renovate, buy, renovate, rehab, refi, something like that.
repeat.
So
Okay.
yeah, repeat.
And
So
this
you
this
just keep
this works.
moving in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. So my parents had this double still in our family today on the edge of the Ohio State campus. And so that was we'll call it the Burr method, right? Like my parents bought that. They lived in a side, they fixed it up, they moved to the other side, rented out this side. And they sold that property to me in 1987 when I was a freshman in college. And I just sold that property to my kids so they can have the same learning experience. And that was our kind of our training wheel property.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everyone cuts their teeth on that.
yeah.
And I've hesitated to sell that property because maybe my kids will pass it down to their kids and they can learn some of these methods. Right.
Beautiful.
And I actually moved out of the dorms and moved into that property, lived in a side, rented it out my sophomore year. So, those are really simple things you can, again, rinse and repeat.
When you say a side, are we talking like a trailer next to the house? We talking about a small part
Uh,
conjoined to the house? What's in the side? Yeah.
well, you were just talking about the doubles or the triples.
Got it.
That,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it. So if there's multiple floors, you pick one and
yeah,
then the other floors are rented out. Got it.
yeah, side
Yep.
by side, whatever your
Yep.
configuration is
Understood.
now.
Understood. Okay. And so, you've had all this beautiful lifelong journey in real estate and a family business and your own business. Where do you what's the vision for Peak 10? What's the vision for you through this conduit of ownership of this type of business? Like, where do you see this trajectory of the business going? And then on the side of that, personally, what's the bucket list? Like, what do you obviously making money creates a lot of opportunities. There's some headaches that come with it, but there's a lot of opportunities. It creates, ability to travel, ability for healthcare, ability for good food, ability for education. Like, it creates all these beautiful things. But there's also, there's probably the why, right? There's, you want to see the kids do something. You want to go on this beautiful, vision quest. Like, what does that look like? So on the business side and on the personal side, what are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah, so I'll start with the business that'll lead to personal. So,
Okay.
the name of the company is Peak 10 Group, and so I'll just point it out. So right back there, that's the company logo, Peak 10 Group, and that's the 10-mile range in Breckenridge, Colorado. That's where the company's named after, and that's actually Peak 10 right there. So I have a house in Breckenridge that overlooks that, and so I have this passion for skiing in the mountains and my passion for real estate coming together. Right. And so my BHAG, my big ass goal, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it, is 5 years. I'm 4 years into this. Is I want to be developing multifamily at some type of a resort setting or a resort town.
Nice.
So if I could travel to a project near a resort community and start building, that's going to mix my work and my passion together.
Yeah.
I do have some investments. There's a new resort being for you skiers out there, new resort in Utah called Mayflower being developed. I made some investments out there. Um, and we actually bought a piece of land out there. Can I build multifamily on it? No, but I'm one step closer to that 5-year goal. And so that's really the 5-year goal. And, really, I've got kids in high school and down to 12 years old. So it's really about spending time with the family before they get out, right?
Yeah.
85% of your time with your kids is you get 85% before they turn 18. And then you have 15%. So right now it's trying to spend a lot of time with the family.
Yeah.
I know it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And fortunately, this wasn't intentional, but my 17-year-old loves the mountains. We're big into downhill mountain biking. We did a 7,000 mile mountain bike park tour last summer,
That's
which
awesome.
was awesome. And so, I want to do more
Where
of
was
that.
that? Where was that tour?
We left Columbus, drove to Colorado, rode Keystone. My son did a big mountain enduro in Durango, which is a whole other topic. He's a gladiator on his bike, man. It's nuts, full gear. And he raced in Keystone, and we went on to Winter Park for the Nationals, went to Jackson Hole, Big Sky.
Wow.
We drove all over. And so,
Beautiful.
I want to do more of that kind of stuff in the next few years, and definitely travel international. Got a big trip this summer. So, as the kids get out, my wife is a level 3 ski instructor here in Ohio. Imagine that. She works for Vail Resorts.
Okay.
And so she's big mountain person as well. So we plan to do a lot of skiing and spending time in the mountains. That's the personal goal.
What's the legacy, man? If you could be, hopefully another 40 plus years looking back on a life well lived, and you've done all these beautiful things, had all these beautiful experiences. Like, what's the one thing you want people to remember you by or for? And what's the one thing you think you could leave behind, almost in the sense of like the listeners and the viewers? What would you like to leave behind?
Wow, I think, I want to create a legacy that's multi-generational. I mean, and I think about that every day. How can I create, maybe like the Rockefellers, right? Like create a system that provides wealth and opportunity for multiple generations after I'm gone.
Mm,
And whether that's through education or funding for education or adventure or business, it's to create that silo that allows generations after me to do that through some mechanism. So, you know, uh, just try to be a good person, be a family man, and live a responsible life. I mean, it's a hard question to answer, but
beautiful. Put you on the
also,
spot.
yeah, you got me there. But really, I think like we talked a little bit earlier. I mean, I like helping people out. I almost always have a couple of interns from Ohio State that are in real estate working for me. I like to mentor people. I like to help. Like we talked about, 25-year-old, 30-year-old Nate. Um, on the way up, maybe you have a challenging real estate problem or you're not sure how to look at a deal. I've got a lot of experience. Got a decent balance sheet and can bring capital, have great, strong property management. So that's what I can bring to the listeners. If you've got something that you're not sure how to attack, maybe it's a little bit too, maybe you're sitting in your car going, how do I buy a 200 unit complex? Well, I can help out with things like that. And that's what's so great about the business now is don't be afraid to ask for help. There's tons of people out there that want to help 25-year-old Nate or 25-year-old listener. How do you do this? How do you plan a path to success?
And what about the folks that may be a little bit more seasoned that have a career change or a come to Jesus moment? Maybe they had some sort of epiphany where they're like, the career that they're in or the thing that they want to do isn't the thing anymore. And now they want to do this. What do you recommend to them?
Don't quit your day job, your W-2 job until you sign the loan paperwork from the bank.
Underwriting guidelines. You got to make
So
sure that you can qualify for the loan.
yeah. So strategically think about that career change and if you want to go off on your own, you should be very strategic about it. And I'm half kidding, but I'm serious. Like you should be very strategic in your exit from your day job or
Yeah,
your first career and think about how that works. And I'd be glad to talk to people about that, right? Like I have a lot of friends that are docs and I do kid with them. Don't quit your day job. I need you doctors and your lawyers out there because you've got a great tax return and high net worth. Don't quit your day job until you sign on the big loan. So be
understood.
strategic about it.
Great advice. Great advice. And that's it's well put because you do need those things to even qualify for the loan, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't have those things, they won't even look at you no matter how much of a good person you are. You could even have great credit, but if you don't have certain things, they won't even look at it much past the beginning. So for those people that are interested to continue to follow your journey, potentially connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is go to my personal site, natefisher.net. That's NATEFISHER.net. Or you can see some of the investments I made, some of the properties I manage at my work site. That's peak10group.com, peak10group.com. So
Beautiful. Well, brother, I
yeah,
want to be
man.
the first listener and the first viewer of this episode to say thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being you. You went a little bit deep, vulnerable. You shared a bit of the skeletons in the closet, but that's what makes life beautiful. It gives you the perspective of how beautiful life really is when we go through some of those bumps and bruises. But thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jesse.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate
He's
it.
been
Enjoy
Nate
this.
Fisher. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.